Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year's. Darren Smith, along with Steve Walls, welcoming you to the pregame cheat sheet. We are live from Arrowhead Stadium, where the Chiefs will be hosting the Denver Broncos in just under 45 minutes. And Steve, first and foremost, Happy New Year's to you, and
Same to you.
glad that we both made it here safely
No, of course.
and on time.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
I know, right? So, look, man, there's a lot to talk about. Don't have a lot of time, but your first impression on this game, of course, these two teams played about 3 weeks ago in Denver. Kansas City escaped with a one touchdown win. Never should have been close, obviously, being up 27-0, but they ended up holding on to the lead and to the win 34-28 against the Denver Broncos in that game. Your thoughts on the second matchup to end the regular season here at Arrowhead?
Initially I felt like the Broncos were going to come in here in either the away game or the home game. I felt like they would be more apt to get them, in the away game, meaning win. So I thought they would split. However, after I looking at the game last week, they fired their head coach, have an interim head coach in there now. The way Russell Wilson has been playing, you have so much happening, throughout the team, like where the coach had lost the locker room. You have the backup quarterback arguing with the offensive lineman. Yeah, and so after seeing all that, I'm like, well, this team may not come in here and they may just lay down. However, they've got a new head coach, so you're gonna have a lot of guys that are going to be flying around today just to thinking about next year and thinking about putting good film on tape.
It was reported that the coach, the interim coach, of course, this week changed their practice and had them in pads. I guess from the outside you could think of, man, what's that going to do? But if you're on the inside, do you feel those little changes like that, especially going into Week 17, would help this team facing the Chiefs today?
It lets them know. It lets them know that, hey, that head coach he's like, hey, I'm coming in here. I'm not who you guys think. Right, like we're not going to lay down. We're still an NFL team. We're still professionals. I'm trying to get a job. Like if I'm the assistant coach, it's me and I'm facing the whole team head on. I'm saying, hey, we're still going to play like we're going to be a playoff team. We can go in here and possibly, wreck the whole thing as far as bump the Chiefs down, depending on how things play out. So, and he's also saying, hey, look, I may have this head coaching job here next year. A lot of
head coach.
Well, if not there, somewhere.
Facts.
So it's all about, this league is all we know. We talk about it every week. It's all about relationships.
Yeah.
So if you're going to come out here and play hard for me, I may be able to do something for you down the road. So I just think these guys are going to come out here playing as hard as they can today.
Chiefs lead the all-time series 70-54. They've won the last 14 games. That's astonishing.
Yeah.
That at one time it was 56-54. Chiefs having a two-game, and they've read out the next 14 wins.
Yep.
This is the one team that Patrick Mahomes has never lost to. So out of teams that you play constantly, this is the only team that he has yet to lose to. So, it bodes well for the Chiefs today, of course. But you can't overlook. There's a lot at stake, and we'll get to that later on in the show on how important this game is compared to the other games that will be taking place this weekend. But last time these two teams hit the field, Chiefs won last Saturday, 24-10 over the Seattle Seahawks. On Christmas Day, the Denver Broncos, it's like they didn't even show up, but they got blasted in Los Angeles 51-14 against the LA Rams. And that was the game, of course, that the next day they fired Nathaniel Hackett as the head coach. You cannot, on a national stage, be embarrassed in the way that you have, because literally it seems as though every primetime game or every game that they had to the national stage to themselves, they came up short. And this one on Christmas Day, with the amount of eyeballs that were on that game, obviously the Walter Penner group could not take it anymore.
The thing about it is, look, had the former head coach, had he been able to, maintain the locker room, maintain the bickering, I understand people are going to be upset. I understand there's going to be some disgruntled employees or players or what have you, but you've got to be able to maintain those guys to, even though you're losing, that you're still able to go out there and put a good product on the field. However, he wasn't the one that threw the 2 interceptions in the first quarter, right? That was all Russell Wilson. No matter what the play call was, Russ threw those interceptions. So that wasn't on the head coach. And a lot of people, I think, are right now, I feel like they're making the former head coach, they're making him as a scapegoat. I mean, because Russ hasn't played exceptionally well.
Well,
He's
he
not
never
the
should have been
same.
head coach to begin with.
Well, yeah, I got it. But so so to be honest, they have to figure out a way. All right, well, let's nip this in the bud, right? Let's try to nip it in the bud to everyone else around us.
To an extent, yeah, you do have a fair point because when they hired Nathaniel Hackett, they were hoping they were going to get Aaron Rodgers because he was his quarterback coach, and it didn't happen. They ended up acquiring Russell Wilson, and maybe Pete Carroll knew something, which is why they were quick to get off of him quickly. Jerry Roseberg, of course, is the new head coach, or the new interim head coach for the Denver Broncos, of course. So this will be his first game as a head coach in the NFL. Russell Wilson, as you mentioned before, new acquisition in the offseason. He's 253 of 421 passes, 3,000. He's only thrown for 3,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Now, as bad as he's played, there have been starting quarterbacks, i.e. Josh Allen, i.e. Dak Prescott, i.e. some of these other quarterbacks, but their teams are at least winning and in the playoffs versus what he's doing. Yeah. If you're Russell Wilson, I mean, there's been a lot said about him per se as a person, as a player, as someone, who's getting a lot of things that, not saying that being a starting quarterback or that guy is not afforded to, but he's new. Coming in, additional parking spots, his own office. Even Patrick Mahomes doesn't have an office here at Arrowhead. Not that he couldn't, if he wanted one, he would, but he's not that type of that type of person or player. Yeah. But how does that, if the accusation, which I'm pretty sure, as we both watch Undisputed, Shannon Sharp, the stuff he's put out there, it's got to be true because he's getting it from somewhere, being a former Hall of Famer from the Broncos. What does that do to a relationship between between teammates, man?
They're gonna be envious. You're already at the top of the totem pole when you look at just the amount of money you're getting paid.
Yep.
Then when you think about not only that, but then you come and say, hey, we're not winning. We are looking like we're the laughing stock of the league right now. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to be the Russell Wilson of old, the MVP Russell Wilson, the Super Bowl winning Russell Wilson, the whatever other names you want to call him. But I just feel like you see Jerry Jeudy speaking out for Russ, which I think that was more of a play on that kind of thing. But I think somebody had to say something. Otherwise, you're just gonna lose the team. And then where do you go from there? Because we haven't heard Cortland Sutton come out and say anything. We haven't heard any of the offensive linemen. So, like you said, that stuff's got to be true. But then Russ has to look his own self in the mirror and say, hey, this isn't the same team that you had when you were in Seattle.
But sometimes in certain situations you can be so oblivious. Because
nah, you see what you're saying. You see what people are saying about you.
Yeah, but what changes are you making?
Yeah.
So I'm saying, so if you're not making any changes or not giving stuff up because you just,
means you don't care.
Again, you become oblivious to it.
Yeah.
Because look, there were reports that people were upset about his relationship, with his wife. I can't see how somebody. I think that's jealousy more than anything else. Like, how did you get her, versus somebody else? But look, there's so much. I won't spend a lot of time talking about him. But
that's the main problem of the other team.
Yeah, all that plays a factor in the man.
Yeah,
the field and off the field. Look, man,
including the head coach being fired. All that stuff plays a part.
Yeah, the fact that he talked about how he wished he could play better. Everybody wishes you could play better. Yeah. Look. This game, Kansas City Chiefs, they are 12-3. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if they can get a win, they still kind of set themselves to get a potential home field advantage at the playoffs. Of course, there's some things that has to play a factor come tomorrow night, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But this game, Patrick Mahomes can continue to add to his resume to try to get that second MVP in his career. What do you see in this game coming off of last week's game against Seattle Seahawks? I mean, he had three total touchdowns, two in the air. He had a highlight with the rushing touchdown. What do they do against this team who, again, the last time they were playing, they were up 27-0 before Patrick started throwing interceptions. And look, this is a team defensively that have been playing well all season. I think the last couple of weeks they've kind of got to that broken state, especially after what happened in Los Angeles. Can Patrick and this offense, I guess, continue to keep their foot on their necks after what happened against the Rams last week? And if they don't, what's to say about the Chiefs?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to look back as far as the defensive side goes for the Broncos. I think they're going to look past that Rams win or loss, and and think about this: Patrick threw three interceptions.
Three interceptions
against this team, to this team actually. They remember that. So they're coming in here not only with confidence, but they're not the offensive side of the ball. They're not having to struggle. Like Andy Reid said, they're ranking one of the highest teams in takeaways.
And obviously the weather is much better than what it is last week, so the weather is great today.
Of course. So I think Patrick understands that he had to go back and look at the film and say, hey, what did they do? Some different things what licks did they give me to where I just was overly aggressive? I mean, they was already going to win that game. He didn't really need, if you remember, he threw the no-look pass. There was some other scramble, crazy throws that he threw, and it was just like, you didn't really need to kind of overextend yourself to try to make a play. And he did, and it cost him.
Yeah, well, look, I don't expect. He's played a couple of clean games, of course, the overtime game that went to the Houston Texans that they won. Then, of course, coming back home, what they did last week. So he's played 2 weeks in a row of clean football. I expect that to continue even today. Again, it's everybody likes to say, even he likes to say he doesn't care about them. He cares about it. I mean, again, you know, in this profession, his position, ego comes about in the conversation. You have to care about it. You have to want to win it because
amongst your peers, you care.
Yeah. Look, it's good to say yes. You want to. Hell, Aaron Rodgers has won 4 MVPs in a Super Bowl. But he wants more. I mean, so it's all. You want to accomplish all that because what's use being the best player, but you only got one title to show for it. Now, again, I think this could be the year that he wins the triple gold. To where if he plays his cards right, I think he could get the Super Bowl MVP, League MVP, and Walter Payton Man of the Year. With this team, one thing that we haven't seen over the last few weeks, which has been bothersome for me, for financial reasons, perhaps.
Better, you're better. If you were a betting man.
If I was a betting man, do we see Travis Kelce in the end zone today? Because we haven't seen him in the end zone in literally, I think, 3-4 weeks now.
But they really haven't needed.
No, it's not. It's not about need. But I'm saying, but he is still your best player, and generally, your best player. Again, they feed Devontae Adams. You get to the goal line. If you need to score, boom.
Yeah.
It is good that you have other options, obviously, that you can pick and choose who you're going to throw the ball to. Keeps the defense honest. I get that, but he's still your best player. You want to take care of your best player.
But my thing about that is, he comes up when he's needed, right? Like he's always your coach.
He has had a lot of drops this last month and a half.
Well, but the thing about it is he's still been able to. If you just look at the season as a whole, I mean, still over 1,000 yards. He still has. I can't remember how many touchdowns.
His body of work speaks for itself.
But I think there's so many other components that comes within that offense. I mean, you look at how they've been scoring. You have Travis Kelce, who had 2 games. Well, one game with 3 touchdowns, another game with 2 touchdowns.
With 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, with four touchdowns. So that kind of evened it out a little bit. he was able to miss a couple games or get touchdowns, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you just look at it from that perspective. But you look at how this offense has been scoring. I mean, you've had Kadarius Toney, who you wouldn't have think would be
Jarek
ahead
McKinnon.
ahead of schedule. You have Jarek McKinnon. Isaiah Pacheco hasn't scored as of yet,
But
even
he's
as a
been
story, but he's
putting, but he's
been
been
in
putting
that
people.
position.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you've had some other guys that have, Noah Gray has come in and been
I
good.
think even Marcos Valdes-Scantlin's gotten himself in the end zone
So
too.
when you look at all the various scenarios of how they've been scoring the football, I just think it hasn't been needed. Now, playoff time, if he doesn't come through, then that's a whole
Well,
different ball
Black
game.
gonna come through. We not gonna be we gonna be
Yeah,
home.
but
So
I mean that's a whole different ball game. So I mean I think if you're still winning, I really don't see that as a big issue.
kickoff is at noon. CBS. Of course, Chiefs, Broncos, division rivals.
Yep.
Kansas City has, of course, clinched the AFC West for a seventh straight season. Doesn't get old, I can tell you that now. You know, what I'm saying getting a chance to play a home game. Hopefully, if things work out, Kansas City will get a break. And look, let's just let's look at the defense side of football right quick before we start going into other things as it relates to this game and the season. Defensively, Chiefs got back to their pressure ways last week against Seattle. Frank Clark, Chris Jones, these players are coming up big. What are you seeing from this defense, with the exception obviously from the Cincinnati game that they're doing? Because it seems like they're down, they're getting the pressure in the quarterbacks, they're getting the quarterbacks down.
Hmm.
But what are you seeing between on this defensive side of football between Frank and Chris and yeah, I mean, I basically name anyone on that defense side of football, but they're looking and playing well, and they're getting healthy as the season gets towards the playoffs.
Yeah, they're definitely hitting their stride. I mean, they've had some ups and downs. We've seen uh, against Houston
Mm.
where they've gone through some different things, and I think you need some games like that where you come out and get a couple sack game where you have your young guys. You're playing. Whatever what was Frank said, there were two rookies starting
Yeah,
in at the same time, right? Like that shouldn't have been in at the same time, but still they were still in and they were being successful with it. So, I think we always talk about this defense, Spags defense getting better as the season goes on. However, they started off pretty good. I mean, they carried this team, at the beginning of the season, contrary to last year.
it's interesting you say that because now I think about it. If you look at it for the body work the season, this is the first season in the Chiefs Super Bowl era, of course, going back 2018, that the defense has not been a crutch to the offense. No, seriously, if you think back from the first game all the way up until now, it hadn't been a
Yeah,
situation where, damn, this defense just can't stop nobody.
yeah. Well,
Because
you
no,
forget
no,
the
no, no,
3 and 4 last
no,
year.
no,
They
no, no,
couldn't
no,
stop
no, no, no,
anybody.
no, no. That's what I'm saying.
Uh,
This year's team defensively has been consistent the entire season.
Oh, no. There were a few games. I mean, we talk about them not being able to get after Josh Allen, them not being able to get after Joe Burrow. There were a few games where they were getting beat. I
Well,
mean,
you
you got
got,
to look at those corners. It's like, dang, can we get a stop?
if I remember
No
correctly,
Trent McDuffie. Well, dang, can we get a stop? Can we stop Stephon Diggs? Can we stop what's the other receiver for Buffalo?
Gay.
Gabe Davis. Are we able to stop them? And they haven't been able to get those crucial stops. And I think now they're starting to catch their groove again.
Yeah,
And it
but
was a couple of games without Frank Clark.
but when I say it, I'm saying, Kansas City. I mean, the defense forced turnovers. I mean, not granted, they forced a fumble in that game. I think Josh Allen didn't throw an interception in that game, but I'm saying, but the defense came up big. I think they had a sack. Now, if anything, it was more the Chiefs' offense. Patrick Mahomes throwing two interceptions. The offensive line
Yeah.
against Buffalo giving up three
Well, when
sacks.
you look at it that way.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is the defense, I think for the most part, again, I give you Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati becomes a matchup issue to where Kansas City just can't, especially because of their wide receivers and Burrow gets the ball out so quick.
Yeah.
He's giving them fits. But for the most part, this year, I mean, because hell, even in that game, the defense is keeping you there. But got to remember, the offense had the lead,
Yeah.
and they can't seem to score more than 27 points for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
so I mean, the defense keep you in ball games and giving you a position to do something. But if the quarterback is turning the ball over, that's not on the defense side of football. Because again, against the Denver Broncos, they had a 27-0 lead. But if
They
your
did.
quarterback is throwing three interceptions, you keep putting your defense back out there, they can only bend so much before breaking.
They've got to come get a little bit better with getting some turnovers. I think getting some
Now
turnovers,
that part is
getting
true.
off the field. I mean,
When you get the sacks, try to get the strip, strip the
you gotta
ball.
remember in a game like today, I think you're gonna see the Denver Broncos. We talk about the new head coach, him doing some different things in practice. We're gonna see them go for things on
That's
fourth
the
down.
scary part because you don't know what to expect because
Exactly.
you don't know his type of play calling. What he didn't have any. We don't know any tendencies that he may have had because this is
Yeah.
his first game. So that's going to be interesting to say the least, and we'll see how Spags dial things up on that.
Especially where the book says, don't go for it, kick a field goal. They may just go ahead and go
They
for
may
it,
go for it.
or
I mean,
do a fake,
well,
or
first of all,
some
they got
stuff that
nothing to
we haven't
lose
seen yet.
because they're eliminated, so they can just open up the whole playbook if they want to
Yeah,
and try to just hell, it can be 4th and 23. Go for it. What the hell?
yeah,
It's not like you're going to the, you get a wild card. So,
yeah,
you can try some stuff just to be like, okay, well, how would they react to it?
yeah.
Um,
Who was it? Who was the team that when the Chiefs finally decide to uh, accept on the coin flip, and then not defer, and then they came and kicked? Was that the what team was that
I don't
that
think it was the
came in here?
Texans.
No, it
No, it
wasn't
was
Texans. It was where they
Seattle. No, it
no, it
wasn't.
wasn't Seattle. It
The
wasn't in
Rams.
Denver. Okay, they were here. I think may have been the Rams
But I think
where they kicked the onside field goal, when the onside kick, and
yeah,
then got it. And it
yeah,
was unexpected, right?
yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna see Denver come out here and do
Might have
some
been
things like that.
Tennessee.
It was Tennessee.
Yeah,
Mike, yeah,
yeah.
right.
Tennessee do stuff like
Yeah,
that. They do things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Let's jump to the X Factor real quick because we're going to spend some time looking at the playoffs. But X Factor for you on the offensive side of football for the Chiefs.
I talked about it a little bit, and I've been giving it some thought. I think it's going to be the wide receivers. I think you're going to have to develop a little bit more relationship with Kadarius Toney, especially
You got to get the reps though.
if you're not gonna have McCole Hardman, you've got to have someone that's able to stretch the field, especially if Justin Watson's not going to be it. We've seen Justin Watson just drop some crucial passes that were deep balls
too, though.
Yeah, and I mean he's made some good ones, but the thing about it is you got to be consistent. So I mean, you're playing for a spot next year. You're also playing for film. This is the end of the season, but you've got to develop more of a relationship with Kadarius Toney going into the playoffs, because if McCole Hardman is not going to be a go, then it's going to be needed. That's my X factor on the offense.
You took my point of view because I was going to go with MVS because we talk about all the time to where sometimes you can see when we're in the locker room his body language when you see 2, 3, 4 targets, 0 receptions.
First one off the field after the game.
And so I would like to see. I like to see that at least over the next 2 weeks, today and next week. I like to see that foundation because he's the one with the 3-year contract and not Juju.
Yeah.
And so Juju has shown he has shown more life, so to speak, to where Chiefs fans probably think like, okay, maybe they gave the wrong person, saying the contract. And so I would like to see that one, just because I think it would well serve him and perhaps mentally or something, because they're not going to tell you everything, but you and I, we've been in this business long, well, we can read the body language.
Yeah, of course.
And to me, I think it's important that gets.
When a guy's unhappy.
Yeah, that's got to get fixed, especially because he's a starter. I mean, we were sitting talking before we came on the air about teams that we may or may not want to see. If the Chiefs get a number 2 seed or whatever, who they might play. For me, again, I wouldn't want to see Sauce Gardner because to me, the Jets, because even as a rookie, he's the only one that's a Pro Bowl and probably going to be first team All Pro as a rookie. I think Marcus Peters did that when he was with the Chiefs. So he's a bad man. And the fact that our wide receivers already have problems getting off and getting separation. Yeah. The thing is, if the Chiefs were to play them, I'd put him on Juju because I'm not, I've seen on film. Well, hell, MVS can't. He's 6'4", supposed to run a 4.3 and can't get any separation.
Yeah.
And to me that will cause problem. Now, granted, you still got Kelsey that, to help you, but I just think they could do stuff defensively if they were to make the playoffs that could cause the Chiefs problems. So again, I'd like to see MVS and Mahomes fix whatever could be possibly broken as you go into the playoffs. On the defense side of football, what say you?
I think it's going to be these cornerbacks. I mean, we talk about the young guys. We've heard actually, um, guys like Snead talk and say, hey, the young guys are stepping up. We've heard of the linebackers say, oh, the young guys on the back end are stepping up. Justin Reed talked this week, said, these young guys are they're not rookies anymore. They're now they're veterans. They've been here and they've played enough games to where they're no longer rookies. So I just think the secondary is going to need to continue to get better.
Quick question for just headline. Are you surprised that none of the rookies have hit the rookie wall?
No, you got to remember they all talk about Andy Reid's camp.
Yeah.
And that's kind of I don't know if it's just your player speak or coach speak or whatever you want to call that, just to say the right thing. But I just feel like Andy puts them through a rigorous enough camp where they're in pads in 100-degree weather. They're in pads. There's no longer 2 days, but you're gonna not take any days off. You're expected to be there. So I think that kind of comes into play when you get into week 16 and week 17. It's like, man, I'm still good. I still got fresh legs, So, but not only that. To just in my point, it was about the secondary. I just think Juan Thornhill needs to continue to play better. I mean, play well. Not better, because at the beginning of the season he did. When I asked him, I said, "Do you want to?" He said, and I reiterated that last game, and he said, "Well, no, I did not say I'm going to be all pro." He said, "I want to have all pro games." Right, so
did we get that on tape? Because we had to.
I did. And I told him, I was like, okay, all right, that makes sense. He said, I want to make all pro plays and I want to have all pro games, if that makes sense. And
he said you want to make all pro.
He did. He said, I want to have an all pro year.
Yeah.
So be that as whatever it may, I think he needs to continue to make the right steps forward.
For me, X factor in this game. I want to go back to the defensive line, and the reason why I need them to continue to show that they can get pressure and get to the quarterback. Not only get, but bring them down, because that's in all honesty, that's what's going to make or break the Chiefs in the postseason.
Okay.
Getting after the quarterback, getting pressure, getting sacks, and getting them down, and trying to strip them again. As Max said, they got a lot of sacks, but they don't have a lot of turnovers to show for it. So to me, that's what I'm saying. This is the team, Russell Wilson. We know you can probably force him to make some mistakes. This is the game that you can see that too. And then, of course, next week against Vegas with Stidham. Again, these are 2 games to where I think that you can work out a lot of kinks as you get ready for the playoffs.
You mentioned that, but now I'm thinking this is a game where Russ can try to right the ship. Going into next season. You got 2 more games where I don't know who's on their schedule next week, but I think you got a game that you're trying to right the ship and sell off, at least having some kind of momentum going into the.
But I'm not sure.
You have some momentum going into the next season.
Looking at this game, of course, as I mentioned before, if Kansas City, they do play Chargers next week, so I thought, at home in Denver. If Kansas City wins today, they'll move to 13-3. I think, and I'm going to try to ask this question.
Is this their first 13-win season?
Huh?
Is this their first? No.
Come on, man. They were 14-2.
14-2. Yeah, I'm tripping.
They win this game, they're all going to be Bengal fans tomorrow night.
Oh, of course. Whether they win it or not, they still.
Because you got Bengals and the Bills. We, of course.
Bengals and them Patriots.
Yeah, but Bengals do their jobs, and all Keith can't say to do is win.
Yeah.
But we do want to invite you down to Soray Steak and Orange House. It's back open. We'll be there tomorrow night for the Red Hour. Steve Walls, Darren Smith, DJ Q, Sean Tyler. Come down there, enjoy the show, enjoy Monday Night Football with us. I know we'll be down there watching the game and eating some of the good food. But this literally is the game of the year. And so Monday night it's going to be on both ABC, ESPN, and again. We still don't know what day time the Chiefs are going to play next week, and we don't know if it's going to be Saturday, if it's going to be Sunday in Las Vegas. But we do know this. If Cincinnati wins, Kansas City, of course, if they win today, will jump Buffalo for first place, and then all Kansas City has to do is win next week against the Las Vegas Raiders, and then they'll be able to have the playoffs run through Arrowhead for official. Well, they didn't have home field advantage every year, but when time AFC Championship game came and ended up in Kansas City. So you can have the AFC Championship Invitational here in Kansas City for a potential fifth straight year. Seeing that, knowing that, who wins this game? How does it turn out? Give us your thoughts. Give us your final prediction.
Like I said, it's a couple weeks, or even before they started to play Denver the first game, I said Denver's going to split. And then I watched last week that debacle that happened. I could change my mind. I still think they have Denver has a lot to play for. Like I said, so I'm
Kansas City has a lot to play for.
They do. However, I'm still leaning towards the Broncos, man. I think the Broncos they're trying to. Russ is trying to. Look, you don't want to end the season getting throttled 2, possibly 3 weeks in a row, and then going into the offseason with all these question marks. You want to be able to right the ship. That way, you're able to have some momentum going into next week. It's going to be a close game. However, I think it's Broncos by a field goal.
Steve, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
Mm-hmm. I want the Chiefs to prove me wrong.
I think you're full of bull, Jack. Because I think you tried. I think you really trying to tell yourself this.
I gotta ride with it.
I think you tell yourself this because you said a few weeks ago on the radar that they were going to split.
I did.
So I think you're
trying
trying
to.
to.
Saying that before the season.
I think you're trying to play some ninjutsu in your head to where you can kind of justify picking it, which is fine.
Oh.
But Bill Parcells said probably some of the truest words in the NFL history. Mm-hmm. You are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
And so,
and also there was a movie that said Any Given Sunday.
Yeah, but 51-14 is much different than what we've seen. So, Steve? I can't even believe you drinking your own Kool-Aid or you drinking something else. And I don't know what you got in that cup, but it ain't Sprite. I got the Chiefs winning. I think the Chiefs. Look, I'm someone who believes that you see the Rams winning 51-14. If the Chiefs don't put up a number of points on this team, especially with what we saw last week, mm-hmm. people are going to be thinking, well, damn, is this team, if Baker Mayfield puts up 51 points, what the hell? What do you expect Patrick Mahomes to do? So I expect the Chiefs to win 42-14. I expect the big game because the one thing, as we talked about before, Patrick is trying to sum up the MVP. He has a 4 or 5 touchdown day against the defense.
You
just want to
make me a believer.
You'll be proven wrong, but I got the Chiefs win. I think Patrick Mahomes throws at a minimum 4 touchdowns today.
Okay.
To get this team
make me a believer, Mr. Mahomes,
and to solidify his MVP case. Steve, before we get out of here, as always, let people know where you got the outfit from, man.
Check out my friends over at Dillard's on Rosa. They're there waiting for you. It's a new year, new year, going back to work. Want to have a change in lifestyle. Want to make sure that you going looking your very best. Your kids going back to school. They have a nice polo section, young people section, as well as ladies makeup and purses and everything else. So make sure you go over to Dillard's, located at Zona Rosa. They will take care of you.
As always, I want to thank Todd White and Todd's Clothier and Taylor Suits for making sure that I'm game day fit, making sure I look good each and every week. Again, they're located at 2 locations across the metro area, 20th and Broadway, as well as inside the Ward Parkway. I also want to thank the Popper. He provided me with some attire as well on Friday, so I definitely want to give him a shout out and thank him as well. But look, none of this would be possible. We definitely want to thank G.E.H.A Barbecue as always for being our sponsor, being one of our sponsors, and they're located 5 locations. Now look, it's early. I didn't get a chance to stop by Gates. Mm-hmm. People ask me all the time. I say, look, I could probably have them do that, but I'm not going to open up just for me to come by and get pregame meal at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. But make sure you stop by there. Even if you haven't already gone, you can go after the game, get you some food for the doubleheader Sunday night game. Make sure you stop by Gates. 5 locations around the metro area, and thank them for over 75 years of service to Kansas City, and of course the reason why a lot of us are here and the news people are here because of what they did back in the day with the aroma in the air that the announcers could talk about and smell while they were broadcasting the game. So, for Steve Walls and Darren Smith, make sure you join us tomorrow night, 6:30 to 7:30, down at Soray Steak and Oyster House for the Red Hour. Myself, Steve, DJ Q, Sean Tyler, we'll be back post-game with our post-game show. We'll also bring you Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes from the press room after the game. So until then, thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Football fans, you can't spell gate without Gates, and great tailgates start with Gates sauces and seasonings. Named synonymous with mouth-watering tailgates. When you make your list of tailgate essentials, add Gates sauces and seasonings to that list. Spice up your tailgate experience with that unmistakable great taste. Available in 4 tantalizing flavors. Classic, sweet and mild, mild and hot. Find it at your local grocer, and if you don't see it, ask for it. Visit GatesBarbecue.com to purchase any of the great sauces and seasonings. Great tailgates start with Gates.